Well, here we are on the 18th of September, and the Golden Knights training camp is well underway at City National Arena. Our training camp coverage is sponsored by Core Hydration, this fine product as you're watching on the all the stream situations right here. Dave Gosher, Shane Knighty, back together again. I'm calling it, Shane, season IX. That's 9 in Roman numerals. Next year it'll be X. Yeah, so far. Yeah, I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
No, I can hear you.
Okay. I can hear myself, but I can't hear you. So at least so. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, I'm alive now.
I can hear
myself.
That's good. I can hear you very loudly.
I don't think I need the headset on to hear you.
No, good point. But here we are, season 9.
Yeah, incredible.
For the Golden Knights, which is hard to believe, especially when you think back that it's how fast it's all gone, right? And the summer, I don't know, sometimes, I don't know how you feel about it, Shane. Sometimes I think the summer goes by slow. Sometimes it goes by quick. A little bit of both. However it goes by, here we are mid-September, and once we get to mid-September, that means training camp, and the Golden Knights they've got 3 groups, and Team Vegas is on the ice right now for their second session in the morning right now.
Well, and the interesting thing is I think every year you come in, and we're maybe spoiled by it. There's excitement for every team, but the Golden Knights, outside year one, since then, every year there's expectations, and that's to be a top team, to be a Stanley Cup contender, and very fortunate to be able to come in every year. And this year, you look at it on paper, certainly you got to go through camp. They got some work to do before they get down to the final roster, and that's what camp's all about, is chance to see, what's the development of the young players, the guys that were in Henderson, the veterans getting back, getting their timing. But you look on paper this year, and there's a lot of reasons to be excited with this team, and the moves made in the offseason to address some areas that they felt they needed to be better. They've done that. Now the Golden Knights, one of the favorites coming into the 25-26 NHL season.
Kelly McCrimmon is going to join us here later on in our stream, and we very curious to catch up with the Golden Knights general manager. He had a media availability earlier today, but that's going to be posted a little bit later. But we'll have a chance to kind of to pick Kelly's brain. And one of the things he did say to the general media early this morning, Shane. Again, we're going to dip in and out of training camp here, and this is Team Vegas, and among this group would be a pretty enticing top line you'd look at of Jack Eichel, Mitch Marner, and Ivan Barbashev.
And so, immediately when Mitch Marner, the move was made, everybody's like, is he automatic playing with Jack? That is where he's starting, so maybe that's the kind of the big news as we see this first group. Wow, all of a sudden you got, Barbashev, Eichel, and on the right side, Mitch Marner. Now, will that be what happens when Game 1 comes? We don't know. I think, a lot of times when you get a new player, it's about, finding the right fit. The thing with Mitch Marner, I think he's one of the, most skilled, top talented, certainly top wingers in the National Hockey League, even players overall. So, where is he going to fit best? I think there's a lot of options for him. Certainly Eichel is the one everybody immediately assumed as you put him on that right side, although, the Barbashev-Eichel Stone line looked pretty good last year, and, could Marner fit with a guy like Dorofeev? But for right now, this is where it's at, and this is why you have training camp. This is why you have the preseason games, an opportunity, for management, coaching staff, even the players to kind of see, what chemistry is going to build, what, kind of, I guess when you think of the mind, the hockey IQ, who thinks alike, who can play well together, and where's the right fit going to be.
Kelly McCrimmon mentioned this morning in his media session here at City National that a couple of things that really piqued my interest, Shane. One was if you looked at, since the Cup, and, that was phenomenal 2 years ago, but it has been first-round exit against Dallas, second-round exit against Edmonton, and he was pointing to the Edmonton series, and he said, look, you always have to gauge how much of a reaction do you want to have to that. But what he said was, we were not as good as the team that beat us. And one of the things that they wanted to do was add a really highly skilled winger in Mitch Marner. And if you think about it, over those last couple of playoff seasons, the goals just stopped, right? The goals dried up late in the Dallas series and then late in the Edmonton series. And especially, I guess, maybe more last year. A lot of the guys that scored in that first-round series against Minnesota last year, that just stopped happening in round 2. So for an organization that has never been one to just be passive, they're aggressive. They're not passive-aggressive. They're aggressive. Yes. if they see a need and want to fill a need. And that was a big part of, if you're going to make a list of the top 10 players in the NHL, I think Mitch Marner would, I think, be on anybody's list.
Oh.
So to bring in somebody like him, but more of, considering how the last couple of seasons have ended, where they've had trouble scoring as a playoff series has gone on, boy, you wonder what kind of a difference maker he could be. I know that's down the road, but it is a big reason, that they wanted to. And Kelly said it wasn't a tweak. Marner's not that's a massive ad.
It's not
to
a
their
tweak.
Organization, massive ad.
No, they made a couple other ads, but certainly Mitch Marner around the league, the biggest acquisition for any team, I believe, in the offseason, and what he can bring. And we talk about, talking elite skilled forward. This is a guy that's usually you're going to look around the 100 points for him, but it's, it's the power play. One thing, most people know, but if you don't, one of the top penalty killers in the National Hockey League. This is a guy that, for as skilled and as offensive he's an all-around player. So, certainly playing for Bruce Cassidy and the way they want to play, there's a defensive responsibility that falls on everybody, regardless of your skill level. That's the team buy-in. That's the identity of this team, the way they defend. So he fits in there. So it's, as you mentioned, the management felt they didn't have it. It's an honest evaluation and an assessment, okay, and as you said, they get aggressive. What do we need to get better? And they did that, and then a couple of the other tweaks, the trade of Nick Hague, who's a very important player here that they drafted and developed, but he moves on. Part of that maybe, negotiations, but they bring in a couple of guys, veteran players that, another area that Kelly McCrimmon talked about was a little more identity back to that fourth line, and a guy like Colton Sissons, who spent over a decade in Nashville. Another good penalty killer, but this is a guy that understands his role. He scored 15 in his career before. Can he get back to that number? Well, he certainly hopes so. And it looks like it might be Howden and Kolesar. And getting back to a line that can forecheck, put pressure, set the tone, bring some energy, getting that back, to that fourth line identity, I think is very important. And then Lausanne brings a very physical presence to the back end. Injuries last year, kind of an off-season for him, didn't play much. But, before that, healthy, didn't he set the hit record the season before?
Yeah.
So this is a guy that's going to, the opposition is aware of someone like him when you're coming down that, if you're making a play or you're going in a corner, it's going to be physical.
They were not just going to run it back, right? They couldn't do that after the last couple of playoff exits, and they did not do that. And the other part of this, and we'll get into a lot of these topics when Kelly McCrimmon joins us in a little while, is the loss of Alex Pietrangelo.
Yeah.
And, he was asked this morning about how do you overcome that as a team? The word that Kelly uses, I think Alex's presence on the ice, off the ice. We've got to know him pretty well the last few years. Very vocal guy, always has pretty thought out opinions. He's done everything you could do in this game. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame when it's all over. 2 cups. I don't know, Shane, how you've been on teams where you lose big pieces. I don't know how is it by committee?
Yes, it's within. And I feel like we're having a similar conversation last season.
Right.
Jonathan Marchessault, big voice, big presence, a lot of goals. And it was the emergence of Pavel Dorofeev that came in. And then Bruce Cassidy talked about, other guys having a voice, guys like Keegan Kolesar and Brett Howden. So I look, certainly you can't replace individually an Alex Pietrangelo with one guy and just say, sub in someone else and instantly replace it. No, it's got to be by committee. I think Zach Whitecloud's, has earned the opportunity to be a top 4. Him and Noah Hannafin, I thought when they played together last year for stretches, I thought it elevated Hannafin's game, who's another guy that is at that point to step up his game. I think overall, him and Shea Theodore, but also, as you mentioned, that off-ice presence. They've both been around long enough. They've been in the league a long time. They're elite defensemen. They can step out. Zach Whitecloud, Caden Korzak's going to get it, opportunity. So it's that from within the organization, as you mentioned, by committee, to kind of replace that absence that Alex Pietrangelo leaves.
We have questions coming in on Facebook
already?
Already.
Wow, send them in.
People want to know what's going on here, Shane, and they're, for whatever reason,
send the questions in.
They think we know what's going on.
Well, we'll say something, whether it's right
misguided.
or wrong.
You've been watching us now going on 9 years. We don't know much. But Corbin on Facebook wants to know, how will the coaching staff have to adjust to having a star player, the likes of Mitch Marner, in their lineup? Good problem to have.
It's a good problem. How do they adjust? I think certainly they're, looking for that best fit. And we saw it with Tomas Hertl. I don't think, it took a little while with Hertl at center because of the injury. Marner doesn't have to deal with any of that stuff. He'll have to learn the systems to work with him there. I think he's a very intelligent hockey player that won't take long. And then the other thing you got to understand, when you're talking these top-end players, in that room, yeah, everybody knows he's skilled, but he's just another teammate. So it's that strength of the room and how they handle one another, which has always been strong. We use the word culture, right? The VGK culture within that room, which is handled by the players. That's the biggest impact, and I think they have such a strong group here. Mark Stone, the captain, obviously Eichel, guys that have been around, that he'll come in, and for most guys that have, it has been a seamless transition and an easy fit to fit in with this group from that sense.
We'll talk a lot, rightly so, about Mitch Marner here leading up to the season, and obviously as the season gets going on. One of the knocks on the Leafs, and I guess Marner was part of that, the core four, right, was the lack of the
playoffs. Let's bring it up now.
Well, I'm just the numbers are the numbers. Mitch Marner played 70 playoff games with the Leafs. He had 63 points in 70 playoff games. So, some of that is didn't score a lot, right, in terms of goals in the playoffs.
No.
But produced, last year had 13 points in 13 playoff games for the Leafs. Yeah. A couple of years before that, not as much. 23, the Vegas Cup year, 14 points in 11 playoff games. So I think some of that a little is just could be guilt by association. That team hasn't done anything.
No.
Hasn't done anything.
And
in
I never put it on one
substance.
player, right? It is a team sport.
They haven't got out of the second round in forever.
And I don't know if we have Toronto fans. I'm sure we do, but there's pressure everywhere, right? Players put pressure on themselves. But the outside noise, as we all know, we played even in Boston, it was there, but not. I don't. Maybe Montreal will be the only comparable. The extent that you get it day in, day out, especially as a top player, I'd never have to deal with it. I don't think you ever did, unless in your high school
with the
hockey
Tigers
days,
at Pullman I did, but fine.
But the pressure
not the same.
that's there from the outside. Certainly it's there from within. They're all competitive. Every player that's in the National Hockey League wants to win. Regular season, playoffs, whatever it is, they're going to give it their all. But you get judged, and fairly so. You're a professional athlete. So I'm just interested to see. There's certainly, he had other guys that shared, the core fours, Matthews, Nylander, Tavares, those type of guys. The pressure's there. Here he's got with Eichel and Stone, and certainly other guys that have done it, though, before. And maybe that's something to feed off. But I just think they're, hopefully, and I assume the Golden Knights will get to playoffs. I think it'll be a totally different experience for Mitch Marner when that time comes.
I wonder, too, Shane, about a couple of parts of this. One, playing in Toronto is its own experience.
Yeah.
It also was his hometown team, and that's a whole different deal.
Grew up
there, Leafs fan, the whole 9 yards. Secondly, and I think about when Jack Eichel came here after everything that was swirling around him in Buffalo, right? The neck injury, couldn't decide on proper treatment to move forward. I think for Jack it was an enormous sigh of relief.
Yeah.
To start fresh somewhere else, and I guess I'm hoping, anyways. With Mitch Marner, it's the same thing. As much as it's great to play in Toronto, the pressure that comes with that and with him playing for his hometown team is, I think you're probably right, Shane. Montreal's probably a good example just in terms of you get it, and you get it in two languages up there. Yeah. but that being said, to be able to come here and play.
And it's not like, and you think of that pressure, you mentioned, play the regular season, 102 points last year.
Right.
Still performing and is pretty incredible what he did in his career there. 657 games, 741 points.
Yeah.
So
hell of a player that I hope will be able to benefit from just being able to come out, play without being, hey, look, there is certainly pressure here, but the microscope and the heat of that focus is not nearly what it was in Toronto. So hopefully he'll be able to benefit from that, and we'll see as things move forward here whether that's the case. But and still a young guy, right, at 28 years old, and the Golden Knights signed him for 8 years for a lot of money. Kelly McCrimmon was asked about that this morning. First question out of the gates was Jack Eichel's going into the final year of his deal. I think that's kind of ongoing. They want to sign Jack here for a long time, but Marner is signed here for a long time, for 8 years. But pretty enticing. And Jack's still a young guy in that same age bracket of what that could look like for years to come.
And I was just looking, these two, how are they going to fit? You think it should fit, but then I'm looking, Marner, 75 assists last year. Eichel at 66? One of them's going to have to shoot the puck.
That's the joke, right? You can't pass the puck.
Barbashev will be happy to go to the net and shoot the puck when they can. But certainly, that's something that this is a perfect time. And I'm sure both those guys discuss it as they move on. The coaching staff, address it. They're going to look at every scenario there is and find the right one. But certainly two extremely skilled guys. Jack's going to drive, a line wherever he is, whoever's on the side. And I think Marner's, for a winger, is so impactful on any line he's put on as well.
As you're watching on our stream here, you see on your screen Aiden Hill along with goaltending coach Sean Burke, as this is officially day one on the ice of training camp for the Golden Knights. They had their physicals here yesterday at City National Arena, and this is the first of three groups, a Team Vegas, and then a Team Golden and a Team Knights that will all be on the ice here. It is 20 days until the Golden Knights season opener coming up. That'll be on October the 8th at home against the LA Kings, a back-to-back right off the bat for the VGK, the 8th at home against the Kings. Then the 9th, the team goes to San Jose, 6 exhibition games, and in some form or fashion. We'll have all of them for you here, beginning with Shane and I going to San Jose on Sunday for an exclusive Nighttime Plus. So we'll have that for you. I want to say, Shane, 5 bells Pacific time. Sound right to you?
I'll just, whenever they tell me to be at the plane, I'll be there, and we'll fly in, we'll do the game, and fly back. But that sounds right.
That's when, and we've talked about this in seasons past or in camps past, that it doesn't take long, and I would think the guys like this, right? They get into the games pretty quick. It's Thursday now. They're going to be playing a game Sunday in San Jose. Now, what that lineup will look like, that remains to be seen. They've got 6 of these. 3 against San Jose.
3. Half the games are against the Sharks.
A couple against Colorado. They play the Kings. But anyway, for the Golden Knights, they get going here today. 20 days to go until the season opener. If you look at, let's just take the Bruce Cassidy era here. It has been trademarked early in the season by really good starts. And there have been seasons where they've been able to, especially 2 years ago, where they ended up being the second wildcard team. They really rode that good start, basically through early December, if my memory's correct here. They rode that, all those points they were able to put in the bank. Last year they got off to the good start, and, you have your usual dip, and then they were able, they won the division, of course, again. But, and you would hope that, right now, they're healthy, they're ready to go. There's been years past where that hasn't been the case. There's teams around the league that are dealing with that right now. Knock on any wood you can find for the Golden Knights. They're good to go here with day one of training camp, and you hope that carries on here for the next 20 days until they play the games for real.
And I think a lot of that is the product of the way Bruce Cassidy came in and designed his training camp right these days. If you go from when he came, it's when they've had these good starts to try, you try and get it. It's a mix of getting enough information but not overloading the guys with the systems and the style in which you want to play. And then it's a matter of the execution, trying to get, nobody's at their top game early on, but it's having, what's the term they use, the best B game you can.
Yes.
If the A game's not going to be there, then, you don't want to go to a C game. You want to, have the best B game you can and find ways to win. And they've been able to do that. And I think a lot of that is the prep and the way they go through training camp and through the preseason to do the best to get their players ready.
The Golden Knights, along with the rest of the NHL, and one of the things you're going to have to deal with, and it is just a reality now too, every other year you're going to have some sort of a significant break in your schedule, right? Last year it was the Four Nations. This year it's the Olympics with the guys, a lot of the Golden Knights. So Golden Knights should be well represented over in Milan for the Olympics in February. Kelly McCrimmon made the point this morning. There are 9 fewer days in the
crazy.
NHL season this year. And we thought last year was pretty compacted. This year, similar deal. But everyone's kind of in that, in that boat, so to speak, which I would think, Shane, and I'm just trying to kind of dial it up on the fly here, what the Golden Knights did for a start last year. But to be able to get points early and, those 2 points in mid-October are the same as the 2 points in early April. Just vital for a team that...
And their October schedule isn't crazy.
No, it's not. So I'm looking last year, Shane. I'm just doing this on the fly. Last year, the Golden Knights, by the end of... Let's look at this.
This may take to the end of the
Yeah, you got time. Get comfortable. December the 12th, they were 19-7-3. So that's not quite... What's that, 29 games in? 19-7-3. Pretty good. And I'll even carry it. They got into the new year.
Well, what was the year before? It was like 14-1-1 or something.
I mean, they were at the end of the calendar year last year, 25-8-3.
Yeah.
So that's, you talk about the ability to get off to good starts and, from there, be able to do some good things. So that was last season. Stand by, Shane, because I know you love these numbers here. Please stand. You've got nothing else to do with it.
Well, it's a whole new season coming up.
I know that. We could talk about that, I guess, at some point. 2 years ago, the VGK started it out pretty similar. They were 25-5 through 30 games. I mean, it's pretty.
Yeah.
So it's just been, and while we're doing it here, we have nothing else to do. The Cup year. Let's take a look at the Cup year, Shane. And you can also hear some sights and sounds as I'm going through the math equation of day one for the Golden Knights here of training camp at City National Arena. There's Bruce Cassidy. It'll be year number 4 for the VGK head coach here.
Yeah.
Year number 9 for number 3 on your screen, and Braden McNabb, who's an original member of the Golden Knights. Yeah, just to kind of put a bow on it, Shane, they were similar numbers. They were 21-9-6. Even better than that, 23-9-6 in Bruce's at New Year's Eve of 2022. So there you go. So smoke him if you got him.
Yeah. Well, good job, Dave.
Thank you.
That's some real good research right there.
And shockingly, Theodore and McNabb are paired together.
And this is for anybody. This is why when we do TV, Dave has a stats guy beside him because it would take forever if you had to look one of them up.
It's already noon.
Where's Ray?
Where's Ray when I need him? So more questions coming in. As we looked at the Golden Knights continuing day one of training camp and said Shea Theodore and Braden McNabb paired together and what would be the top line for this group of Jack Eichel, Mitch Marner, and Ivan Barbashev continuing to go through their work here. They were out earlier. They flooded the ice and now out for the second session of this group. Questions. This isn't a question but more a comment. Lorraine watching on Facebook, just excited for the start of the season, as are we. Tyler's watching on the YouTubes in Ontario, wants to know how the Golden Knights' Ben Hutton fits in the Golden Knights roster this season. And thoughts on that, Shane?
Well, I think, very similar. Ben Hutton has proven to be it's a hard role to play to stay ready when they need. This is a guy that can play in a lot of teams regularly, top 6. Here with what they have, and injuries are always a part of the game. You need 8D deep to be a good team, and he brings that balance more than anything because he is a guy you can plug in at any time. He stays ready, and I think that's been his role. He understands it. He's an incredible teammate, well liked by everyone. So whenever it's his call to come in the lineup, and he's reliable. You know what you're going to get, and I think that's very important from a coach's standpoint, and I think it makes it hard at times to maybe not get him into more games when their health is at full or certain things are going. But we'll see how it plays out, right? He is certainly in the mix, and coming out, they'll have guys that ready to jump in if there's injuries.
Ben played 11 games last year for the Golden Knights, but to your point, Shane, he was... a couple of years ago, I was just taking a peek here. 2 years ago, he played in 41 games. Some of that, not all of it, some of it was due to injury, right? He had a couple of, he got hurt.
Got hurt playing forward one game.
He got hurt playing forward, and then he got hurt right before the Winter Classic. So some of this was just some bad luck. He went last year. You talk about, the ability to hang in there. So he went last year from November 17th, and then he did not play another game until March 23rd. So that's December, January, February. That would be 4 months.
It's a long time.
But is able to, his, I had somebody say to me over the summer about, we were just talking about a bunch of stuff, and he had this, my brother-in-law had this little thing about attitude, and about a lot of things in life can be handled. It's all about what kind of attitude do you bring to it. Whatever it is, your work.
Well, and he certainly has it.
And his attitude is about as good as you're going to get.
I hope your brother-in-law bought it for you.
Could you frame that, please? I'd like to get that framed in large letters. But anyway, that's.
I was just watching. It's interesting. If they panned out, you can see they're kind of doing a drill. It's going in a defensive zone, a little bit of forecheck, create offense. They're done the drill now, but those are the type of things they're going to, try and, each day might involve something, whether it's defensive posture, neutral zone, how they want to play, forecheck. There's a lot to cover in a short amount of time, and then all of a sudden you're in games and you're figuring out on the fly.
All right, so we're going to we will be quiet here for a little bit, and we're going to let you listen in to some of the sights and sounds. Bruce Cassidy giving out some instruction. Day one, Golden Knights training camp here at City National Arena, downtown Summerlin. Our training camp coverage continuing, presented by Core Hydration. Dave and Shane with you at City National Arena. Shane, we were watching this drill, and you called it what? What you could say on the air.
I'm glad I'm not out there. Yeah, this is basically, I call it a lung and a leg burner. It's one-on-one. Starts in one side, they blow the whistle, then you race down and battle down at the other end of the ice. Now the trick here is, so off the first one when the puck gets dumped in, as a defenseman, I always wanted to defend on the first one. We'll watch as it goes here. So here, they're going to put the puck in the corner. This is where you just want to defend on this first one and time it right, so you can kind of cheat to get down to the other end first, because you save a little bit of energy on the back end.
Yeah.
There's the inside tip.
Hey, I like that. So
right here. Now watch, they're going to battle, but this is where you wanted to jump. There,
yeah,
perfect.
There you go. See you later.
Oh, see? So that's a good read there.
So you defend it.
So Stanek had a good jump.
Yeah, try to break up the play.
Yeah.
And then see you later.
Yeah, you just want to be on the top. You want to try and have that first down. Anyways.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a part. This is about building endurance, but also in a compete one-on-one battle type situation. So it mixes everything in.
Said Hill and Whitehead are the goaltenders in this group. Team Vegas for the Golden Knights. Interesting that, you think about how it ended last year for Vegas and net, Shane. We had Aiden Hill, obviously their number one man, and I know Bruce Cassidy sat down with Gary Lawless yesterday for an article, and Bruce kind of, I guess, said that Aiden kind of did it different, right? He won a Stanley Cup.
Yes.
Then he became the number one goaltender. So now, can you combine all that this year?
Well, that's
he's going to be here a long time, right? He signed that 6-year extension last season to be here as the Golden Knights' number one guy. Ilya Samsonov, who was the backup most of the season, was not dressed in the playoffs, and it was Akira Schmid that who acquitted himself very well and played some good games. Quite honestly, better in the NHL than he was in the AHL for Schmid last year. And but there's some Lindbaum in the mix. There's a lot of goaltenders.
Well, Aiden Hill to me falls in with a lot of those guys, and I think every player, regardless of age or whatever, you're a professional athlete. Your goal is to have an honest assessment after the season, and there's a want to improve. Whether you're Jack Eichel, Keegan Colasar, Caden, whatever age graphics or demographics, skill level, and I think Aiden Hill last year was a huge learning kind of curve for him. Was able to play 50 starts, right?
Yep.
That in itself, stay healthy. His previous high was 35 the season before, so that's a lot of games added to it. He understands playoffs, but I think it's just understanding being that number one guy for that many games. So now he has that kind of in the back of his mind. He's learned it. He's gone through those circumstances, whether it's fatigue, injury, to manage your body the right way to get it ready to play that amount of games or more. So it's just another year of experience for Aiden Hill.
As you see, this group is about wrapping it up on the ice for today. Team Vegas. And the next group scheduled to be out is Team Golden, which you look at it, Shane, right now anyways. And I know it's the first day of camp, but just a look at what Bruce Cassidy has put together and his staff for their lines. Eichel, Marner, Barbashev, Hertl, Dorofeev, and Saad, Carlson, Smith, and Stone, Sissons, Colasar, Howden. Kind of looks like, who knows between now and 20 days from now, but kind of what they would be looking at from a lineup standpoint. Then on D, as you mentioned, Theodore and McNabb, Hannafin and Whitecloud, Lozon and Korzak. Kind of what they're,
I look at that top nine, certainly Jack's line's number one, but, you got Hertl, Saad, and Dorofeev. We saw what they did last year together. Really came together as a solid line with the acquisition of Saad. There was that chemistry built with Dorofeev and Hertl, but Saad fit right in there. And then, Mark Stone, I think him and Marner can kind of be interchangeable. And all of a sudden, you got Riley Smith back in the mix, him and Carlson, that chemistry they have. But now you got Mark Stone. That is a tough matchup for any other team. That's your top nine?
Yeah.
And then, of course, we talked earlier, Sissons and kind of bringing that identity to what they want from that fourth line with Colasar and Howden. And Howden, mind you, had not a bad season last year, hitting the 20-goal mark for the first time. So
huge.
And Colasar with big numbers. Sissons scored 15. So that is a very deep 12. And, certainly a lot of things can happen in the next 20 days, but and there'll be, certainly what camp's all about is other guys trying to find a way to get noticed.
Yep.
Cole Schwint did that last year in training camp. I thought Lisinski got 8 games, not in the sense even there's different things they're playing for these young players, not even to get in the lineup, but to be, high on that radar for a call-up.
Well, one of the things Kelly McCrimmon mentioned, and we're going to ask him this when he stops by in a few minutes here. I wanted to make sure I had his phrasing correct this morning. He said that the water gets deeper for young guys the further you go into camp.
Yeah.
How close are you to making the team? How far away are you from making the team? And I think for a lot of fans, they're intrigued by maybe some of the look. I think the reality is, Shane, for this group, you just talked about the depth.
Yeah.
They kind of have their team.
Yes.
There's not much in terms of, but the battle's going to be, to your point, there's going to be an injury somewhere along the way. Who's going to be in position for that first call up front or on the back end? Ben Hutton probably going to be that 7th at least to start the year again, probably. But I think that's the thing that if you're Kelly McCrimmon, George McPhee, and staff, probably one of the more intriguing things of training camp. The evaluation every day.
Yeah, and I think
every
they
day,
love that.
right?
And kind of recap of that. They had a couple of games, the rookie games, that went well. They were happy with the way they play. A couple of guys that led. Kai Uchaz had 3 goals. Mateo Nobert had 2 goals. And so Matt Cataford, who's young, 3 assists there. And there's a lot of players that have just. Carl Lindbaum. There's a guy that they kind of had slated for last year to start in Tahoe possibly, came in, was the guy in Henderson. So, those are the type of things from that level, the development they look at, that they reward young players with. That, you're not just playing to make the Golden Knights rosters. There's call-ups, there's Henderson, there's just the growth and fitness and development. I'm sure, Kelly can talk to us a lot more about that. He's been evaluating players since I played junior hockey and before, so... certainly a lot more knowledgeable on that topic.
Long time ago.
Yes, indeed.
The rookie tournament, a little different this year for the VGK. They went up to Denver and played 2 games instead of 3. Convincing 8-1 win over Utah. Carl Lindbaum had the victory in that game. As you mentioned, Shane Uchaz and Nobert with good games. And then that was on Saturday. Then Sunday they beat Colorado 3-2. Sapovalov, Uchaz, Joe Fleming had goals. Cameron Whitehead went the distance for the victory in net over the Avalanche.
And Joe Fleming, interesting, been a defenseman, has transitioned to forward. Darren Millard, who was there, our colleague, and I love to give him credit. Said he was.
Don't encourage it.
He said Fleming looked really good and was excellent in the game. So lots of things to look for here as camp moves along. Certainly, we've talked a lot about the main guys who we expect, but it is always interesting to see strides some of these young players have taken from one camp to the next or in their first camp, whatever it may be.
We're looking at Braden McNabb once again. One of the things Kelly McCrimmon mentioned this morning, Shane, and it's easy sometimes to get a little bit, time goes by, and was Braden McNabb getting injured in that Edmonton series. You think about him and Pavel Dorofeyev both getting nicked up in the playoffs, and there's always, I think, a whole host of reasons why you win and lose a series. Those are 2 pretty enormous pieces of the puzzle for the Golden Knights that were not. Look, nobody's, you went through this. If you're going to make a deep run, no one's at full strength, especially when you get into the middle of June.
No.
But they had 2 significant pieces of, their top goal scorer in the regular year. And, if he's not the most underrated defenseman in the league, and Braden McNabb, he's in the running for that. And to have those guys injured and trying to fight through it was, something that made it, was probably a steep hill anyways, even steeper, for the Golden Knights as they went. Dorofeyev missed Game 6, Minnesota. The Golden Knights obviously closed out that series. Missed the first 2 games of the Edmonton series. We know what happened with McNabb, getting tripped. The over was a game, whatever game it was, the Edmonton series. They missed the call. We know the story, but
he's so durable.
Oh, yeah. When he went, I remember thinking when he went down and stayed down. It was scary anyways, the way he went into the end boards.
Very.
He never stays down. Like, he's about, as durable to your point as you're going to find. So for someone of his nature, to get banged up in the playoffs, miraculously is too strong a word, but strangely, incredibly, did not miss any, played every game in the playoffs, but was obviously not at. Saw what happened to him, gets tripped up into the end boards, and obviously was not at full tilt for the remainder of that series. But again, everyone healthy and ready to go here. Training camp 2025, season 9 for the Golden Knights as they get things going at City National Arena. And, for a team that, one of the things that was mentioned this morning by Kelly McCrimmon was they haven't, so they've had 8 years of existence. They made the playoffs 7 of 8.
Yeah.
We know the story. They've never had a year, and we'll see. Doesn't look like it'll be, they missed the playoffs 3-4 seasons ago now.
Well, that happened in the back half.
The back half, hammered with injuries. They got knocked out in game 81. Yeah. They're a team that they have set the bar extremely high. They have made significant changes year to year. Made a lot of changes last year. You mentioned the biggest one was Jonathan Marchessault. Funny, I was thinking about this the other day. There was a lot of emotion involved in that, right? You lose an original misfit, Conn Smythe winner. We know the whole story. Mitch Marner's not here today. If you're going to keep Marchessault, you can't keep in a cap, and I know the cap's going up. You can't keep everybody. And that didn't work out. So now you're a year down the road, and you've got a 28-year-old who's one hell of a player who's going to be here for the next 8 years. And we all love Marchessault and everything he brought to it, and as we should. But and you couldn't see that then, right? You couldn't, you can't see that far down the road. But if Marchessault stays,
these options aren't available.
That guy's not here.
Yeah.
So it's at least right now, we'll see how it goes. We get a full season to play.
And you don't find out, some other players, primarily what Pavel Dorofeev did last year, right? And you think of that power play, how well he fit in there, and just, what he was able to do. I'm excited to see this season. Can he, first of all, health is always an issue, but, 35 goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
For a young player like that.
And then you plug in the guy you're looking at on your screen right now, and Mitch Marner, who you'd think he'd find his way onto the top power play unit.
I'm interested to see what that setup. Bruce Cassidy hasn't let us into any of those conversations. Yeah. But that's down the road, and lots of things have to happen.
Or you could spread out the wealth.
Well, here's
right.
Just so everybody knows, Toronto played a lot of 5 forwards. Mitch Marner played the top position.
Right.
So he can play D on the power play. Did it in Toronto. So, is that possibly an area we'll wait and see as it plays out, because they have 2 guys that are extremely qualified in Theodore and Hanifin to play, the top of the power play.
Interesting too, Shane. We mentioned the, Alex Pietrangelo, and it looks like his career has come to an end, which, it's he's going to be around. He's been around, I guess, the last few days. I think he'd like to still, kind of. I just think it's how he's wired.
Yes.
He wants to kind of be around the guys. And,
it is tough. I've been fortunate to jumped right out of playing and stay in the game, and I think it's always good when a guy can, stay in it and in any capacity possible. Certainly, when it kind of this one ended more abruptly for him than he would have liked. There was no plan. I don't know if there's ever a plan when it's time to step away. Some guys have it, but for Pietrangelo, I think he's here in Vegas, I think it's good for the guys to see his presence around when he can.
Signed Caden Korczak through a good deal in the offseason, so expected he'll be a regular contributor. Some more questions rolling in. First off, a happy birthday message to John on Facebook. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, John.
36, John.
Oh, young.
That's a lot of birthdays ago for me. Baxter on the Facebooks wants to know, funny enough, who do you think will be on the first power play unit for the Golden Knights? Well, he kind of...
Well, I have to believe. So for me, it doesn't change with the kind of, on the flanks, we'll say, as Bruce likes to call it. You got Eichel on one side, Dorofeev on the other. You got Stone on the goal line, Hurdle in front. And you have to have Marner in the first. So I think they, between him and Theodore, options 1A and 1A minus, or both 1As actually. They're both tremendous. Yeah. Both can work the top of the power play. But that's how I would see it kind of playing out.
There you go. Leo on YouTube wants to know what the goaltending situation looks like this year. Besides Aiden Hill, well, we kind of touched on it a little bit. There's theoretically, you would think it's Akira Schmid is the backup. Carl Lindbaum's, he's
got to play, for third.
He could be third in the depth chart.
Has more of that NHL's won an NHL playoff round in New Jersey. Didn't have a great year in Henderson, but played really well when he came up. And maybe he just didn't adjust. Maybe the NHL's more fitted to his style. He's a big body, but that's That's one of the reasons these preseason games happen, right? To see what they have there to evaluate. Schmid going to be the guy. I would say right now that's his job to kind of prove to everyone else.
One of the things I think we talk about, Shane, every year when we do these streams in the preseason is the exhibition games always mean different things to different players, right? And these next couple of weeks are going to mean something completely different to Mark Stone and Jack Eichel and others, as opposed to somebody like Caden Korzak's been a bubble guy. Now they're expecting him to contribute regularly in the top six. Where does, you were mentioning earlier, there were some players last year that came into camp that we kept an eye on because that had good camps that put themselves in position to be the first call-up or two when injuries came down the road.
Yeah, Lashinsky had a great camp. And it's kind of funny. Like Dorothy, if they wanted to see, could he handle playing night after night and can be performed? And obviously he did not bad. Cole Schwint was kind of unknown, came in and proved himself as a reliable guy that could, jump in and out of the lineup on that fourth line. So you're going to have that, I think, interesting names back. A guy like Dylan Coughlin back with the organization. Is he going to step into that top eight? There's some defensemen. We mentioned him with Hutton, whatever. There's your set. Who's going to kind of be that 8-9 guy? So those are when, you're a veteran. How many games? You want 2 or 3 of the 6. You're a young guy. You want as many as possible, as much runway here to prove yourself. It'll be the last year, Dave. I know you'll be disappointed that we have 6 preseason games.
Yeah, what a shame. And then they're going to cut it. Is it 4? Found the 4. Yeah, and go up to 84.
84 regular season and down to just 4.
Which was going back to the. Think about this here, Shane. Early 90s. That wave of expansion, Ottawa came in. Anaheim came in the league, I think, at that point. Early 90s, 91, 92. Anyways, they went to 84 games. It was a couple of years they did play 84 games. So it's not unprecedented.
No.
And so that will be starting next season.
Well, next year you won't even feel it because there's no break next year.
Right. So it's just cruise right through.
Cruise right through. An extra 2 games is nothing when you can add that many extra days to put it in.
Well, the NFL did that, right? They cut back a preseason game out of the regular season game. They're probably going to I think it's odd they play an odd number of games right now, but at some point they'll get to 18 regular season games.
Put your request in
the NFL. I'll
call Roger.
Talk to Roger here. Roger, it's Dave in Vegas. But in any event, the Golden Knights, as we said, getting going here. Day 1 of training camp at City National Arena. This first group just about wrap things up. And then groups 2 and 3. It does set up. I know we talked to the coaches over the years about this. It is a long day to be in skates.
Oh.
Right? I would think
I could barely make a period. I had to take my skates off after every period. I don't know if I could wear skates for a full day.
Yeah. Well, the coaches are in there for. Is the last session wrap up at 4:00 today? 4? Holy smokes, that's a long time. We mentioned the Golden Knights wrapping up this first session here, as you see here at City National Arena, and Golden Knights general manager Kelly McCrimmon has put him in the hot seat. Between us two geniuses, we'll get down to your
intimidating ghost.
I know, Crim. We're those of you who can't see on the stream. Shane and I elevated our seat. I have to elevate my seat.
It's funny you said the seats were higher. Yeah. There used to be a coach that did that in his office. I'm sure Kelly knows who I'm talking about. It was known in L.A.
But Golden Knights general manager Kelly McCrimmon joining us here for day 1 of training camp. Our coverage presented by Core Hydration. Kelly, you met with the general media earlier and just had your first chance to look at this first group. I would think after a lengthy off season that you have a little time to decompress. Day 1 of training camp must can't come quick enough, I would think, for you and your staff.
It's always exciting to get started with the new season, and unless you win the final game of the year, it's always a mindset where you've got something to prove when you return for the next season. I think that there's a lot of excitement when you are around our team, because the guys, of course, have been in town for a while and around the facility. You can really sense the excitement from the group, which is exciting. And there's a progression where you go from rookie camp, rookie tournament, but it's always different when the veterans hit the ice for main camp. So yeah, this is a real exciting day for the organization to get started.
Well, we always talk about what we think is going to be the team. It's pretty much set. I know there's certain things, but for you've got known you for a long time, and I'm always curious, like, how much you enjoy this from the aspect, training camp, the evaluation. You guys started in junior hockey for so long for different reasons, not only the evaluation of your players you've drafted that are in Henderson, but then, how do you guys come to the point of projecting? That's always been a curiosity of mine, where these guys may fit in the NHL someday.
Yeah, that's a big part of what we do, and it's an important aspect when you look at it. I know just the last session we watched, I was really impressed with Jacob Urbanek. So, he's a third-year pro that it's a really important year for him. He's returned in great shape. He's got a little bit bigger and stronger. So, that's one example of what we're talking about. And I think that, as I touched on with the media availability this morning, some guys you're asking yourself, could this player be a call-up this year? Because you need call-ups from the American Hockey League. The injuries are part of the game. You're going to have to dig into your depth to be able to get through a season. So you assess some players that way. You assess others. Can this guy be a full-time NHL player? Maybe not immediately, but in the future, because any of the players that you can develop within your organization that become players on your team, it really helps you from managing your salary cap and everything that goes with having younger players on your team. So yeah, it's got to be an exciting time of year for those players. It's an important time, and one that's really valuable in terms of us just getting a feel for what we have in the organization, aside from the obvious guys. As you said, when you come to the rink to watch training camp, you're going to focus on the veterans, and it's just natural to want to see how those guys look. But for the organization, it's really important that we drill down on where we're at.
Coming off the last couple of years, Kelly, where you obviously Stanley Cup in 23, and then first round Dallas a couple of years ago, and second round Edmonton last year. What was the thought process of your department going into this to try to build to this season? We need to add A, B, C, D. What were you thinking to get ready for this upcoming season as a group?
Well, we've always really liked our centers. We've really liked our defense. We would like to add, a high-end winger. So that's where the whole conversation began with our organization and Mitch Marner. He's one of the best in the league in terms of being able to create offense, two-way play. He's a penalty killer as well. So that was something that the timing of that worked out really well for us, because we wanted to improve ourselves on the wing. As I said, we're really happy with our centers. We've had good centers really throughout the history of our team. In particular, once we acquired Jack Eichel, it put everybody in really good spots in terms of what you want your center ice to look like. The defense is going to have a big change when you take number 7 out of the mix, who's been a mainstay since, 4 years that he played with us. That's going to change things. That's going to change things for sure. And, we at least have the benefit of being aware. We at least have the time to get our head around it. Players themselves have their time to sort of assess what kind of opportunity that presents for each of them. I mentioned this morning when we did media, we think Zach Whitecloud is ready to move from being a third pair defenseman to a second pair defenseman. He paired really well with Noah Hannafin. Hopefully that's a pair that can really establish themselves as a good NHL defense pair. Caden Korzak, we think, is ready to be an every night player. So, again, he's only beginning to scratch his development curve in terms of his growth in the league. He's paid his dues. He's had some development in the American League. He was in and out of our lineup as a young player last year. He's ready for a little bit more. And then, as I mentioned, I think Ben Hutton always is a guy for me that is capable of helping our team on any given night. And then, Jeremy Lozon was one of the players that we acquired from Nashville in the Nick Hague trade. And, he's a very defined defenseman that's going to give us, a real special ingredient that you need in the makeup of your team there as well. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Hannafin and Shea Theodore, it's their decor now. It's time for one of those guys or both of those guys to be the alpha male, which Petro always was. And then you've got the leadership and the steady play of Braden McNabb. So that's probably what we're going to look like on the back end.
It's interesting because this was the time. It seems like we had this conversation up front with a different player last year who moved on, and then it was the emergence. You said you have to build within. Guys, Korzak, you mentioned White Cloud. Last year, it was Pavel Dorofeev.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what he was able to do, and I remember we were talking about the importance of these games, and I think last year Lashinsky had a really good camp, kind of became a call-up. Cole Schwint came in, and then Pavel Dorofeev was challenged to play a lot to see if he could be the guy, and obviously he had not a bad season.
Yeah, it went okay for Pav, and just in talking with Doug Davidson, our strength and conditioning coach, really impressed with Pav's off season. He's bigger, stronger because he's still a young guy. I mean, you guys see him when you look at him, he's still looks like a kid. He's baby-faced and one of the youngest-looking guys in our team, but he's I think he's up to 196 pounds and, had a really good off-season. He trains in Connecticut with a really good trainer out there that we work closely with to keep tabs on how Pav's off-season is going, and he looks really good. So, again, 12 months ago, no one would have had any idea what type of impact Pavel was going to have on our team.
You mentioned it earlier, Kelly, and one of the biggest moves in the league this offseason was the Golden Knights adding Mitch Marner. Someone of his skill set, still at only 28 years old, is one of the things you're intrigued about. And look, it's been a whopping day one of training camp, but just that chemistry potentially he could build on a line with Jack Eichel and Ivan Barbashev.
Yeah, I can't wait to see him on the ice, to be completely honest with you. And I remember making the comment on July 1st, I think was the day that I did media, that with Jack and Mitch Marner, somebody's going to have to shoot the puck, right? And, they're both tremendous players. They're going to sort that out. And if they find that chemistry, it's going to be an incredibly dangerous line. If if Mitch plays with one of our other centers, that's going to be a tremendous boost to that line. So, I think when you look at, we've got, probably 10 forwards at least that can easily slot into top 9 roles. And that's what, Bruce has a good feel for, who can, find synergy and chemistry with who. He likes to talk about pairs a lot. So, those are things that'll sort themselves out. Obviously here, the first session, Jack and Mitch are playing together, and it's going to be pretty special to watch those two.
And I was talking earlier with Dave. I said, and you obviously know the one maybe area doesn't get talked enough about with Marner, maybe down here, and no, it does in Canada, but all around power play, he's going to be impact there. But penalty kill, one of the best penalty killers in the league, and so is Colton Sissons. Were that the thought there to improve that area of the game? Yeah,
well, Mitch Marner has been first over the boards on the penalty kill, first over the boards on the power play, and he's been a first-line player, his entire career. And when you look at his body of work, his numbers, that the offense he's created over that period of time, there's 3 or 4 people in the league that have done the same things. Nice for Bruce to have had the chance to work with Mitch at the Four Nations, and you're right, really responsible two-way player. Has had Selke votes in the past. If you envision Jack Eichel and Mitch Marner killing a penalty, because Jack Eichel has become a great penalty killer for us as well. If you envision those guys killing a penalty, you'd have to think that's going to have a power play respecting. That they better manage the puck pretty well and make sure no foot races are created, that type of thing. So, yeah, it's another player that can kill penalties. Colton has done a really good job of that over his career. Sissons, he's a right-handed center that's going to be able to help us on the face-off dot on that side of the rink, and really respected by his teammates in Nashville. Really has. Good leadership ability, and is going to be a really important piece for us in that part of our lineup.
We talked earlier, Krim, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. We talked about the intense heat that comes with playing in Toronto that Marner's had to deal with his entire career. And we said, I don't know, Toronto's really intense. Montreal in 2 languages is really intense. And I kind of made the correlation to when Jack came here a few years ago and everything that was swirling around him in Buffalo. He was just kind of able to come here and play.
Yep.
Do you think Marner might be able to benefit from that same? It's a fresh start, new city, new teammates, and a new opportunity.
I think there's a lot of parallels there, Dave. I think that he's coming to a really good organization. It's a completely different hockey market than what he's used to. It's not only that Mitch played for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He was from Toronto, right?
Yeah,
so it was another dynamic there. And, for us, and I think for Mitch, lots has been said and written about his time there and how he, joined our organization. I really want to focus on Mitch Marner, the Vegas Golden Knight. I think that Mitch is ready to do the exact same thing. To your point, I think this is going to be a breath of fresh air for him, and I know our organization will do everything we can to help him be the best player possible.
I had a quick question for you. I was interested in your answer today about the fourth line, and Will Carrier leaving, a couple of years, I guess, after 2 seasons ago now, and that needed to kind of rebuilt might not be the right, but you needed that identity to be back again, and the importance that I know Bruce has talked about it.
Yep.
Could you maybe touch on that a little bit too, and some of these moves you made in the offseason?
Yeah. So when you look at I'll give you a long-winded answer, like most of them have been here so far, Dave. But when you look at the playoffs and the fact that we didn't have the success that we wanted to. You don't want to overreact. You have to look at kind of how it all unfolded. So, there was a lot of mitigating factors. I've always said to win, everything has to go right. You need a lot of things to go your way. We had a lot of things that didn't go our way. And when I look at, Braden McNabb got injured in the series, Thomas Hertl getting injured late in the season, I don't think he was ever the same player again the rest of the season. Pavel Dorofeyev, who we've just talked about, missed 3 games in the playoffs, and all of a sudden that's 2/3 of that line, and then Brandon Saad broke his ankle. So there's a line that was as good as we had down the stretch, so that changed. Mark Stone, didn't play the final game. Petro missed a game in the series. So there's a lot of things that go into it, and I'm not putting them forward as excuses. Edmonton were the better team. That's why they won the series. That's why they advanced. But then when you look at the makeup of your team, I think there was just a bit of a feeling from, myself, George, I think as well, the coaches felt this way. We just needed a little more identity to our fourth line, similar to what we have had for many, many years, right? And it the year we won, it was Will Carrier, Nick Waugh, and Keegan Kolestar. They were really important. I mean, you guys were there every night. It's even Game 6, the goal they scored. I mean, it was just a beautiful play all the way down the ice. But they impacted the game in that way. So our roster is built that our top 3 lines are going to be talented. They're going to be skilled. They're going to have the ability to have possession a lot. They're gonna enter the zone with possession, as opposed to a line that is going to establish a forecheck. And I think that's what we're looking to do a little bit, is just sort of to reshape our fourth line. Coley is really good at that. He's proven that he can do that. Colton Sissons is going to be a guy that slots into to that role, and I think does a good job for us. And then, whatever Bruce decides to do there, whether it's whoever, there's a handful of guys that could slot in there. Hopefully, that gives us a little bit of a different identity from that fourth line. And that's, it's not, these aren't state secrets. This is just kind of the makeup that we think a good team needs to have.
I was going to say, and I also went talking about Lausanne, the other edition. Did you feel a little more? This is a guy that, if you're on the other team, the opposition, you got to be aware when he's on the ice.
Yep.
Led the league in hits 2 years ago. This is a guy that brings some bite to the back end.
Well, he does. He really does. And he led the NHL. He set the NHL record in hits 2 years ago, since broken. But if you're a right winger and you're taking the puck down the wall, he's probably going to take a chunk of you. And is very aggressive in the D zone below the dots. Yeah, I think it's why I describe him as very well defined and an important ingredient on a good team. I think he's a guy that can help you win, and I think he's a guy that would be valuable to your team in a playoff series.
You got two of those guys on the left side of your D.
Yes,
I was going to say McNabb too. You don't want to be a right winger.
Yeah, that's.
How do you look at your goaltending situation right now? Aiden Hill signed the long-term extension last year, and Akira Schmidt came up late in the season, was the backup in the playoffs. But how do you kind of see that unfolding as you go through camp?
Well, just as you've laid it out, Aiden, I think has established himself as a really good number one goaltender in the NHL. We've won with him. We believe we can win with him. We extended him in season to make sure that he was going to remain part of our organization. Akira came up at the end of the season, and we may have never ever put it in these terms, but he effectively won the backup job over between he and Ilya Samsonov, and played some really good games at the end of the season. And it's funny with players. It's not just goalies. Sometimes it's forwards or defensemen. Sometimes the NHL is an easier league to play in than the American Hockey League. And for whatever reason, he seems to have had much more success in the NHL than he did in the AHL last year. He didn't have great numbers in Henderson, but when he was with our team, he played really well. So, those are our goalies, and I think that it gives us a good tandem. And we're a team that I think will play good defensively to help those guys, and then obviously there's going to be times when they have to help us.
Last one we have for you, and I'm going to just ask because you touched on it this morning. Dave and I talked about it. Since Bruce Cassidy's came in, now that we're in camp, the importance of how it's been structured, because your starts it took Dave about 20 minutes for him to finally find the actual numbers, but it's been a good last 3 seasons, the starts, and that's impactful on a long year to come out of the gates.
Well, it really is, and I mentioned it earlier. Our camp will be identical in terms of the format to what it has been each of the last 3 years. We've had good camps. We've got our system work done. We've got our identity established. The preseason you use as well is a big part of that. We've got 7 preseason games, and then our starts have been good. And when you look at it, I look at the Western Conference, the 8 teams that were in the playoffs. You would think those teams all expect to be in the playoffs again. And then the teams outside the playoffs, I feel strongly there's going to be teams in the playoffs this year that weren't in the playoffs a year ago. So, 2 points are 2 points, whether it's, the first week of April or the middle of October. So we really, no guarantees that you do it the fourth time, but certainly we've had good starts over Bruce's time here.
Last one I had for you, Krim, and I know we're back in hockey mode now. How was your summer? What did you do? Did you get back to the lake? Could you decompress?
Summer was good. It was, you've got free agency, you've got development camp, and then once we were clear of that, I was in Manitoba for all of the summer between Manitoba and Saskatchewan, but Western Canadian summer for me. Lots of family time with my son, daughter, and we've got a grandson now, so lots of time with people like that. And it was excellent. Good time, a good chance to recharge. The summer was pretty slow in the NHL. Really, there wasn't a lot going on. I know that there's been other summers. The summer we traded for Jack Eichel, or the year we traded for Jack Eichel, a lot of that work began in the summer. So you're kind of fully engaged in terms of trying to stay on top of things. But it was pretty quiet summer around the league, which I think surprised some people. But for us, we've got our chairs are filled. We're comfortable to start off. The roster evolves, right? This is where we are today. Maybe it changes as the season goes on or at the trade deadline along the way. But we feel good about the makeup of our team that we'll begin the season with.
I know my partner's has a grandson who is spoiled incredibly.
Yeah.
How much is your grandson spoiled by his grandparents?
Yeah, well, it's like if you aren't a grandpa, you would get sick of listening to people that are.
I
right?
could talk.
It's that obvious. I used to be that guy.
Yeah.
And now, I'll get my phone out here, Dave.
I'm good for now. But
just,
right there.
If you just want to hang on for a sec, exactly. No, it's awesome, and of course, I've had friends that use the lines if well, what's the line? If I knew being a grandpa was going to be so much fun, I'd have my grandkids first. Or something to that effect, right? So no, it's awesome. We love it and enjoy it and appreciate it.
That's awesome. Great. Well, great to have you with us, Krim, and we'll see you here as we get going here at training camp, and much success this season.
Awesome. Thanks guys.
Kelly McCrimmon joining us, Golden Knights general manager, and that will put a wrap on our day one coverage here on the stream. Our training camp coverage is presented by Core Hydration. Dave Gosher, Shane Natty signing off. More stream coverage to come tomorrow from City National Arena.